Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's new episode, of course, of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and friends. And ladies and gentlemen, I have brought a bevy of friends today. We have three different podcasts representing their brand. Well, should I say, we have three members of three different podcasts representing their brands to talk about the breaking news from last night at 11:17 on social media that literally broke the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, Nintendo has agreed to a 10-year deal with Microsoft to bring Call of Duty back to the platform, not seen since the Wii. Remember, it was Call of Duty 3 was on the Wii, ladies and gentlemen, and now Call of Duty will be coming back at some point, whether it be the Nintendo Switch or their Switch HD, whatever that mind that turns out to be. We on top of that, we have open-ended conversations with Gabe Newell. And I think if you are a video game enthusiast, you know who Gabe Newell is. Well, he is the owner, operator, and head dude over at Steam. And he had something to say that sent shockwaves through the interwebs. This comes on the heels of some very, very heated commentary from Brad Smith, president of Microsoft. We also have a ton of other quotes that we're going to be reading to live on the air. We have a ton of people that are not only joining us, we should have most of the Primetime Gaming panel with us. The only one that is going to miss today because of illness is the Wandering Dutch. He is out and down for the count. Of course, we all wish the Wandering Dutch a very, very quick recovery. But again, we're still waiting on Everborn. We're still waiting on the mag. And we're also going to have 3-bit dropping through as well. But let's get into who is here. And we have three special guests. And we're going to start with Mr. Lord King, 98% right all the time. What's going on, brother? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling so good. I'm feeling right. I'm feeling so right. I might get another percent.
Vindicated might be the word.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shout out to Special Nick, of course, of Xbox Era, who's in the chat. Nick is someone that is mostly right as well. And Nick, I'm sorry you can't join us, brother. If you can, hey, listen, just drop me a DM. We'll get you on in here. I got to shout out a friend of the channel, Jimbo Jangles. Now, that name may not ring a bell for you, but he did something incredibly epic for me personally. And he sent me a video on Instagram, which it turns out that my Instagram account was under attack from being taken over. And thankfully, they shut it down. So I was able to change my passcode and get back into my own Double Barrel Gaming account, which is great. He customized an Xbox Series X controller that he sent me. And I don't know what it looks like. I'm going to literally open it up on the air when it gets here. And I cannot thank him enough. He's been watching the show for over 2 years. And, we do this content, all of us here, never expecting anything. Because we do it for the love of the game, the love of the community, the love of the industry. That's why we do it. So big shout out to Jimbo Jangles. I will share that controller, that custom controller that he made for me specifically once it arrives. But we are getting a lot of super chats. I will get to everyone. We have a couple new channel members, but I will get to all of those as soon as, of course, we get the rest of the guests. And Hargi Chani, you seem to always join us when the tip of the spear hits the gaming news. And boy, oh boy, do we have some gaming news today. I gotta tell you, we're gonna get into it, but the industry going up against Sony publicly really does put them in, or basically painted themselves into a corner. This certainly puts a lot more pressure on Lena Khan. Again, I don't understand why she would try and stop this deal when there is literally nothing wrong with it. But Nintendo getting involved, the same Nintendo, Hargeet, that the CMA said was not a part of the industry. They're only the market leader on many, many places. First of all, how are you, man, and what you been up to?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been on vacation, right? So I've been playing games,
Yes,
barely sleeping,
yes.
just playing games, like going through. I've finished quite a few, and I just finished Danganronpa, the first one, and now I'm going to
Nice.
2 and 3. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing, just playing.
And this is a man that's on vacation till the start of 2023, folks. Just want to give you the
Yes.
heads up. Good on
Oh, that's
him.
what's up.
That's
Yeah.
what I
am
am talking
jealous.
about. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We can represent. Speaking of representing, Xbox era, one bad mother, our good friend. It's been a while since you've been on here. How the
Yes, sir.
heck are you feeling, my brother?
Well, I'm feeling good. First, thanks for inviting me on this penultimate episode of the ABK deal. It does feel like we are getting into the final acts of it. So, and it's great to be here. I think it's the first time I've been with both Hargy and Lord King at the same time. I've been with both you at different times, and it's always a pleasure. A pleasure. You guys bring a lot of entertainment, and Hargy's beer just brings good luck, which I
Yes.
need. I need the look of the beard because unlike Hargy, I am not on vacation. I think I'm in the opposite of vacation. I feel like you see like those old westerns where the guy gets his foot stuck in the saddle and the horse runs away. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it's been like for the last few months. And so boom, that is one of the reasons why I haven't like chimed to join in. But you know how it always is though, man. It's like when it's usually it's a slow week and I'm like, yeah, I'll join. You got like, here's my list of topics. And as soon as I say that, it's like a few hours later, throw those in the garbage. We're calling it audible. All hell broke loose. So I'm happy to be of service to the show today.
Well, you know what? It's honestly, it's good. I'm glad that we have such a plethora of community leaders, people that go out of their way to represent not only their own personal brands but others as well, and they do it in a proper manner. They do it in a way that is community friendly, that's open ended, that's welcoming, and of course, that's what we do here in Double Barrel Gaming. So obviously. I'm thrilled and honored to have everyone here. But Crispy Bomb, the best voice in the business. What's going on, brother? How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling good. Boom. It is great to have the whole chat here. Everybody's filing in, and man, PlayStation effed around and they found out, didn't they?
They
So,
did. They
you know,
did.
yeah, they're basically aimlessly wandering around like a zombie at this point because they ain't got nothing, man. They got nothing. They got no answer right now, and they're probably you're not going to see them sign that contract, by the way. But we're going to get into it.
Yeah, it's pretty sad when you see a company that is in first place, has been the market leader for 2 decades plus, continues to rake their player base and their consumers over the coal. Anyone that watches this, I don't care whether you're a PlayStation loyalist or not, if you're going to sit there and tell me that they have not produced anti-consumer practices for decades, then you are definitely a part of the problem, and they continue to do so. The fact that they are literally the last publisher to okay this deal when others, Zelnick came out and basically threw Sony under the bus, for 2K. We're going to get into what Gabe Newell had to say with the CWA. If you don't know who they are, I don't know. They're only the biggest union in the entire country, have backed Microsoft. They just started working with the fine folks over at Bethesda to bring the first gaming union to developers there and play testers there. It's everyone that has talked about this deal that is not Sony is agreeing that it's good for gaming, it's good for consumers, it's not anti-competitive in any way. And Sony, and King's going to get into it because we were talking in the green room, and I kind of dropped a little nugget that made him explode. And he was like, "I got to save this till we go live." Folks, Sony is not only doing incredible damage to their reputation within the industry, they have now what they have ultimately done, and I don't know who's going to talk about this first, but you're definitely going to get talk here, is that they have now taken a magnifying glass, the size of the entire industry, handed it over to all of the regulators around the world and said, yes, look at everything that everyone is doing when this was something. I mean, think about it. It's pretty crazy that their $3.6 billion acquisition of Bungie went through as if I was slipping on my Crocs to go check the mail. But this deal somehow is not good for gaming. We're going to get into it. Let's welcome in everyone else. Kay Asante, what's going on, brother? How you feeling?
I am feeling absolutely fantastic being on an amazing panel such as this. I'm actually, forgive me first and foremost. I know Lord King David is here, and his first question will be, "Where the cams at?" Well, some may know, some may not know. I came back from vacation, and not only did I bring some awesome African carvings, I also brought COVID-19 as well. So it took a while, but I'm getting up to snuff, and I will use the excuse that Mr. Everborn Saga does. We need to go to the barbershop. So until then, it'll be cameras for now.
I'm right with you, sir.
But I'm here, and I'm here for the smoke. I'm here for the entertainment. I'm here for all this amazing information that's coming out drip feed, and I think I agree with OBM that we're in that third act right now, and it's very interesting to see. I'm here
and if I may say so, the minute you said everyone not on camera, here he is to basically let you know that you're wrong about Sonic.
Oh yeah,
that's a horse of another color. First of all, Everborn Saga, welcome back, brother. You called me at 7:03 this morning to start chatting it up about what is going on, and you have been chomping at the bit to get into this conversation. Folks, we have almost 300 people already here, and we're only 11 minutes in. This is going to be a killer show with some killer opinions. How are you, Everborn?
I'm all right, and I would just like to say 3 words to the audience, and that is full court press.
I love it. Indeed. Indeed it is. We don't have King David here for the entire show because obviously he works nights, and he was awesome enough to be here to give the opening salvo, if you will. King, I want for everyone that's gonna have their shot to give their spiel. I'm going to be reading some excerpts from some of the big happenings from last night, and I want to start you off, King David, with the commentary or the interview that came the way of Kotaku with Gabe Newell. Now, Gabe Newell, folks, I think everybody knows who this man is. He is the owner and operator of Steam, one of the biggest entities in gaming. Well, this is a direct quote from Gabe Newell regarding the Activision Blizzard King acquisition, and this is what he had to say. "We're happy that Microsoft wants to continue using Steam to reach customers with Call of Duty when their Activision acquisition closes. Microsoft has been on Steam for a long time, and we take it as a signal they're happy with gamers' reception to that and the work that we are doing. Our job is to keep building valuable features for not only Microsoft, but all Steam customers and partners." And he goes on to say this, and this is where it gets nasty. Microsoft offered and even sent us a draft agreement for a long-term Call of Duty commitment, but it wasn't necessary for us because A, we're not believers in requiring any partner to have an agreement that locks them into shipping games on Steam into the distant future. B, Phil and the games team at Microsoft have always followed through on what they told us they would do, so we trust their intentions. And C, we think Microsoft has all the motivation they need to be on platforms and devices where Call of Duty customers want to be. This is a big deal, King. My question to you is, how big of a deal is this? And more so, give us the Nintendo scenario here. Nintendo, the family-friendly platform, signed a 10-year deal for Call of Duty.
Well, I'm going to steal Cog's initial reaction. Phil is forming Voltron.
Oh, I love it. Now,
Right,
is this the 5 lions or is this the 40-piece entity?
This is the 16 cars and trucks, baby. Because throughout this whole tumultuous time at Sony being in the lead, they have ripped and tore straight through the game industry, through the customers, through their partners, and through the competition. Let me address the integrity statement that was given by Gabe. This is like when you go to court and you're sitting there and they want somebody to talk about the person, when they want the jury to know about the person, and you bring in somebody of high moral fiber.
A character witness.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So, sometimes you bring in your pastor. Sometimes you bring in your detective police friend. Sometimes you bring in your doctor friend. People that are part of the community. Gabe is one hell of a character witness. And for Gabe to say, having the biggest platform on the PC, you didn't have to give us no contract because they always follow through. Clutch the pearls. Did he just say he didn't have to give us a contract because they always follow through? That means that man is a man of his word.
Yep. No tricks up his sleeve. No bananas in the tailpipe, King.
You see, there's nothing up my sleeve. I'm not trying to fool you. This goes a little bit deeper. Let me give you something a little bit deeper because this is something that y'all did not see. Sony partnered with Epic. Epic has a game store. Direct competition for Steam. Don't you think that rubbed Gabe a little bit raw? And then Sony invested into the platform so they could have a stake inside Epic.
Hey, King, you know what else? Phil gives Gabe all his games day and date. Sony makes Gabe wait for how long to get cold leftovers?
6 months minimum.
And if you're throwing context in here, the number one person that is very interesting that would be behind Microsoft is Gabe, because Gabe has been Microsoft, specifically Microsoft's like thorn in their side for years. He is happy and glad to throw shade whenever possible. So when it comes to Gabe Newell coming in and saying, nah, these guys are doing good, it means a whole lot. But please, King, continue.
That's a deep conversation. So the reason why it went up at 11 and some change that last night is because they gave the Japanese audience. See, Microsoft really cares about Japan. Really cares about Japan. Because right now, Japan feels that Sony's turned their back on them. And yeah, Jim has taken that stuff and put it on the EU. They're over there in Europe. That's their turf now. So what Microsoft sees, it sees an open void. They're playing nice with the people that were wronged. So give Nintendo the first crack. That news is really for Nintendo to get the word out there. That's the biggest news. Call of Duty will be on the Nintendo platform for 10 years, signed with no problem. So that means it's going on PC, it's on Microsoft's platform, and it's on Nintendo's platform. Now, how are they going to get it there? They might have to make a deal with the Azure cloud service. And I love Phil's shelf is undefeated. Completely undefeated. Everything you see on that shelf.
The Switch was on the shelf, so Nintendo was in pocket.
He was. Now, this is where it cuts a different way. Who did Sony screw over with Final Fantasy?
Forget about that.
To get the lead position.
That would be Nintendo.
With the original PlayStation. Remember, that was supposed to be the Super Nintendo CD.
Well, that Nintendo did something slightly on that. But business practice wise, Sony started locking off games and stuff from the Nintendo platform, namely Final Fantasy, and it made that the home organically, right? Made that the home of Final Fantasy, and it's still doing it to this day. So what Nintendo did? Their statement. Yeah, we signed 10 years. Great thing. It's happening. Everybody's pulling up and giving support to Microsoft because the business practices in the background, let's just say Rockstar wants to release the new Grand Theft Auto on Game Pass. But Sony has in their contract, you can't release it on Game Pass. I'm not a fan of that. I'm going to give support to Microsoft. We have to give support to Microsoft. We need a new boss in charge. We don't like what the boss right now is doing.
King, you're saying something super important, right? A lot of people in the industry had no choice, including Epic, right? Who has to pay them the cross-platform tax, right? They're the market leader, and every other publisher in the industry has to do what they got to say, right? And because guess what? You don't want to sacrifice our market share and our customers. So I think everybody else is getting in line because guess what? Sony, you overplayed your hand.
Yes.
Right? You used your position in the market to bully everybody around, and nobody could say anything because they knew there would be a reprise. But guess what? They called a cousin. Their cousin who just came home.
Yeah.
Their cousin who was about that life.
One pillow,
right?
one pillowcase.
Hey, listen. Go ahead, because Phil has a new quote that I want you guys to hear when you.
I say this in summary for everyone to see. Phil lowballs the hell out of Mr. Jam Dance Moves Ryan. Lowballed him on purpose.
Snitching Ryan, you mean?
Yeah. We'll give you 3 years on top of that deal. He knew Jim was going to bulk. He knew Jim was going to do what Jim did.
and why is this? Is Phil a nice guy? What do you call him? Killer Phil? I think he's known as.
Phil Dominus Maximus Aurelius Spencer is the quickest, easiest, quietest, nicest assassin you're ever going to see.
Agent 47 got nothing on Killer Phil.
You never find the body.
Hey, boom, for the watch.
So when Jim was snitching and Phil played him right into that position and made it public that the 10-year deal was on the table and they didn't get an answer, other people stepped right up and accepted that 10-year deal because they felt that 10-year deal was more than sufficient. And Gabe went above and beyond by saying, I don't even have to sign a contract because those people are people of their word. That puts Sony in a box that they have to take the 10-year deal. They have to face their mortality. This deal is going to go through. There will not be a PlayStation 6. Come hella high water. After this deal goes through, you're going to hear a Sega sign go off.
Let's go.
Because you're not going to get this level of scrutiny on the next deal from Microsoft because they already leaped past the hurdles. They already went past the regulators and they already showed that they're for the public and for the people. Wherever Game Pass is, then that game will be played. PlayStation. I'm going to give you a word of advice. You want to survive? You want to make it through this generation? Slap Game Pass on that box.
Win with us or watch us win.
I just said I knew it was going to happen. He played him right into position.
He did. You know what, King? You and I were talking behind the scenes like we do every day. And I told you when they offered the 10-year deal, it was the canary in the coal mine. The canary in the coal mine. I think Phil, Brad Smith, Sarah Bond, Aaron Greenberg, and a whole lot of them all knew that Sony was not going to sign that deal, that they were going to buck at that 10 deal. They were going to run to regulators about that 10-year deal. And now you're starting to see the wagons are being circled, ladies and gentlemen. And PlayStation is now surrounded. Okay, it's not just Xbox. When you start seeing prominent members of the gaming leadership community like Gabe Newell get out there, like Zelnick from 2K, you start to see others in the industry go sideways with Microsoft, i.e., Nintendo, the family brand, is going to have not only Call of Duty, but they signed a 10-year deal, ladies and gentlemen. They didn't just talk about it. They signed a 10-year deal, and then you hear Gabe Newell saying, "Hey, we don't even need that. Their word is good enough for us." I think, and I said this before, and I will continue this. I will die on this hill. Sony is the bully that has run the gambit for years, and now someone whooped that ass, cowboy style. That's what happened, and they don't like it. They're going to take the knee, and that is going to. You know what? Let's, before we go back to King David or Lord King 98% correct all the time, please, everyone, read this, the Phil Dominus Maximus Aurelius Spencer quote.
Yes, he did an appearance on the Second Request podcast. Now, this is a quote from Phil Spencer. There's really only been one major opposer to this deal, and it's Sony. And Sony's trying to protect their dominance on console, and the way they grow is by making Xbox smaller. They have a very different view of the industry than we do. They don't ship their games day and date to PC. They don't put their games in a subscription service when they launch their games. They're starting to think about mobile, as I see it from the outside, just reading some of the moves they're doing. But because Sony's leading all the dialogue around this deal shouldn't go. Because Sony's leading all the dialogue around why this deal shouldn't go through to protect their dominant position and console, the thing that they grab onto is Call of Duty. And we've said over and over, we'll make a multi-year, 10-year commitment to PlayStation. It was the first call Satya and I made to ship Call of Duty on PlayStation. There's 2 more paragraphs, but I'm gonna leave it there because that is just enough for now for you to understand Phil is not playing. You know, King, the first time I ever podcasted with Cog was on this show right here. He was a guest, and I told my story about Phil not being a nice man, about how he smiles to get close to you so he could get the shiv in your ribs, right? So everybody's pointing and laughing, but then you look around, he got the shooters on you, right? They're up in the mountains and you're in the valley of the shadow of death. And they got the crossbows trained on you. And he's just going to give the word and say, "For the watch." And that's when the arrows let off. Right? And that's why Cog knows what I'm talking about every time I say "for the watch." But I think today he just said "for the watch." And he let the arrows off. See, the thing is, people try to brush it off when Strauss Zelnick said there's only one person complaining about the deal, because they're like, "Oh, well, that's just another publisher." He's saying that because maybe it's fine for him because he sees some opportunity there, but the platform holders aren't saying it. Well, guess what happened today? Right? And the CMA's entire argument hinges around making Microsoft look more dominant in the industry by way of excluding Nintendo. Right?
Just ridiculous.
But here's there's a very specific reason they did that. The CMA has certain market share thresholds that you have to pass for them to even consider a substantial lessening of competition. And the concentration of Microsoft and Activision would not meet said thresholds if you include Nintendo being a market player. So when the CMA says we don't want to count Nintendo, it is so that instead of looking like they have 20% of the market, it looks like they have 40% of the market, because now you're only counting PlayStation and Xbox, right? But what they've done today is said you cannot exclude Nintendo because now they've signed a deal to have it on their platform. And what Sony tried to do, and it's very clear what they tried to do, they don't want Call of Duty in Game Pass because it exposes their hand, right? They have been able to charge full price for their games, right? And they don't have to put them in a subscription service, and people are going to buy the subscription service anyway because their games are quality, right? If Call of Duty goes into Game Pass, along with Diablo, along with Overwatch is free to play, so we won't count that, but we will count Starfield, Redfall, and everything else. You can't make that argument anymore. And so they know that's a non-starter for Microsoft, so they are using regulators to give them leverage in this negotiation with Microsoft. They're not worried about losing Call of Duty. They're worried about Call of Duty going into Game Pass and making that offering so attractive that it becomes a no-brainer for John Q. Casual.
It officially changes. It officially changes the paradigm for the casual gamer, right? Because right now, I would say Game Pass is a enthusiast. It's an Xbox enthusiast product today.
Yeah. 29 million enthusiasts.
When it turns the
More than
corner
that.
to
More than
yeah,
that,
when it turns the corner to when it becomes like how people refer to Kleenex or Xerox, when it becomes that kind of brand that everybody thinks about when they think about subscriptions in gaming, and subscriptions in gaming becomes the norm, that's really what Sony is trying to slow down here. And like going back to what you were saying there, Everborn, regarding the Phil Spencer comment, like I feel like a couple sentences there kind of like are really what this whole thing's been about. Like when he says, Sony's trying to protect their dominance in console, the way they grow is by making Xbox smaller, and they have a very different view of the industry than we do. That's what this whole story's been about since the beginning. Consoles, you heard Sean Layden say it, right? Consoles is the same batch of gamers buying the same games generation after generation. If you look at the graphs, console gaming gaming as a whole has grown significantly and projects to grow a lot more. Console's been a flat line for a long time. So if you want to grow your pie, you got to make the other guy's pie smaller. Now, as gaming with Microsoft has gone from being Xbox to Microsoft gaming, like they're playing with a completely different view of the entire industry, and Microsoft sees themselves growing as the industry grows right now, and they're no longer competing. Like this console is just a small lane into their ecosystem. And so like when you talk about Call of Duty and Game Pass, like I've argued with friends of mine about this from the beginning. You don't need leaving Call of Duty on PlayStation actually does more for Microsoft 10 years from now than making it exclusive, making that the Minecraft, making it like they did with Minecraft. They made that IP bigger than it was than when it was before they bought it. And if they do the same thing with Call of Duty, it's on more platforms. The brand is even bigger, and it's the biggest selling game on the PlayStation. And now it's essentially free, to the average gamer that's on the Xbox, because they're getting it in their subscription every year. Like, I think that does more for the brand, the subscription, and bringing awareness to Xbox and Game Pass than if they would pull it off of PlayStation, and where Call of Duty could lose a lot of mind share, and they take a lot of risk doing that, right? So really, the mistake I think Sony's made here is they've been used to being kind of like, let's say, like a dominant college sports team, right? You've been like the Duke of college basketball. And they've always been used to playing Xbox, who's been a lesser than in terms of that level. This time they're not challenging Xbox, they're challenging Microsoft. And it's like now they're going up against the Golden State Warriors. And you look at guys like Brad Smith, you look at Amy Hood, Satya Nadella, above Phil Spencer, they're considered by, if you listen to any like industry experts who talk about investment in companies, they're considered one of the best group of executives in terms of strategies and just in terms of knowing what they're doing and being able to see like ahead of the game. And I think right now, like you're just seeing it. They circled the wagons. They checked off all the boxes. I don't even see where there's a Hail Mary play left for Sony.
There really is.
It is.
Well, wait a minute. I do.
There is.
This thing isn't a done deal, like yet, right?
No, it's not. It's certainly not.
I do think Sony's play here is still sound, and I don't even know if there's a reason for them to accept the 10-year deal if what their goal is to get it blocked from Game Pass, because they know Microsoft is not going to turn around after the deal is approved and say, we're pulling COD off, but we're going to give it to everybody else. Microsoft is not going to be spiteful, at least so overtly, right? They're aggressive now because this is the ninth hour, right? And it's very important that they get this FTC approval now. And I was talking to Kay Asante about this earlier. The CMA is deliberating this as we speak. They're set to publish their findings for their phase 2 investigation in January. It will look terrible if the FTC moves to block the deal, even though the FTC would later lose in court. What you do not want is the CMA looking at the FTC and saying, see, we have grounds here, right? And I'm not saying they're taking their cues from the FTC, but it will be a quiver in their arrow. Much more than the Brazil no concessions.
Well, the thing with the FTC, Little Birdie has broken the news that, I mean, a lot of palms have been greased when it comes to certain
Chuck
political
Schumer.
parties.
Sorry.
Yeah, certain political parties.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to keep it that way. And that's the reason why the comfortability in the situation and speaking and being so forceful. Everyone asks me, why did he show his fangs in this manner? Well, one, the bosses showed their fangs first.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you are lead point in this business. And in this deal, he is, excuse me, point man. The FTC is not going to be a problem. That's not going to be an issue. There's already been conversations around favor for Microsoft in that avenue. I'll leave it at that. The bigger problem is the fact that in the month of November, where Microsoft didn't have a first-party title in the same vein as God of War, they outsold.
Hey, J-Rock said Pentiment sold more consoles than God of War.
See, everybody can do what they want to do with it. They can do what they want to do with it. I'm just going to say this. You can see chinks in the armor. You can see mortality at certain parts. And
Yes.
you have to really look to see it. You don't be blind by fandom. Don't be blind by favoritism. Be logical and analytical when you look at it.
Yeah.
There's no way on the face of this earth Microsoft was supposed to win November against God of War.
Nope. Absolutely not.
Period.
No.
Okay. There's no way that they're going to have, and I heard Kay Asante say this before. Sony doesn't need to move. Sony can sit right there and wait for this thing to go through. Yay or nay, 10 years is on the table. We'll take that. If it's a nay, we're good. If they block it, we're even better. They're not going to block it. They want to keep it out of Game Pass, just like that. Heard Kay Asante say that numerous times. That's not going to happen. They're not going to tell me how to spend my money. All right, so the money's going to be spent. You can have it, and you're going to sell it for $70. But if you don't want to do that, you can have Game Pass on your box, and that's a great thing. If you choose not to have it, we'll give you options. They used to giving options. The mortality rate is very high, and it increases every day. When you see the boldness of other people stepping up saying, I support Microsoft, that means they want regime change. When you have a revolt among your contemporaries that are producing the games that are your lifeblood, because we all know for a fact that exclusives do not sell consoles, because if it did in November, God of War would have won. So, to conclusion, exclusives do not sell consoles. They're talking points for fanboys. The casuals move the needle. And I'm telling you, the biggest casual thing that y'all have been afraid of for a long time is Game Pass. And if the biggest casual game is inside Game Pass, it signals death. Now, I know the FTC is going to probably take this and be like, see, Sony's like, see, King is 98% right all the time, and this is going to happen to us. Your business practices will do it because pride comes before the fall. All you have to do is accept Game Pass on your box, bend the knee, look Phil in the eye, and take him as your Lord and Savior. It's over, sir.
Facts. I keep getting 300 vibes right now. Just filthy.
Xerxes
Somebody's
only
gonna get cooked.
wants bread and water when he's around.
Well, I think what you're gonna see, and I hope someone does a gif of this, is Phil Spencer kicking Jim Ryan into that bottomless pit.
Into the pit of
So,
Game Pass.
Jake, I'll add some things to what you said though. It doesn't exclusives don't sell consoles except for Nintendo, because Nintendo's first party is so unbelievably
totally
fantastic that it will sell their console.
It's not that they're fantastic. That's all they have.
Well,
no,
no,
if that's all they had, and if it
no.
wasn't good, it wouldn't sell consoles. They are
When it's
number
looked at
one.
when it's looked
They're
at
number
as
one.
a
And there's a reason.
child's
right?
toy, there's a reason. Yeah. I
Okay,
understand.
and I'm gonna counter with this: 10 years of Call of Duty
Is it just
on a
gonna make it better?
Nintendo console that
Mhm.
is
Gonna make it
leading the market now without Call of Duty.
Yep.
What
Yeah,
type
100%.
of animal does that turn that machine into? It turns it into the machine that can actually be the death knell for
Well,
at a
it
month.
takes
the
Sony out,
snitching
and
dude.
that's the thing, right? And
Hargeet, that's a fantastic point, because Hargeet,
like that. 100%.
as we know, and I've said it numerous times,
I love
Splatoon
Hargeet.
3 is selling like gangbusters. That is
Yep.
a first
Good
party
multiplayer can hell, yeah.
kids game shooter that uses ink and squids, and it's one of
Yeah.
the best selling games in 2022. Now, it's not going to beat Call of Duty? Sure, I get that, but it's also a Nintendo exclusive.
Exactly.
And it's a shooter that they made from the ground up to challenge the likes of Call of Duty. Now, granted, yes, two different games, two different types of shooters, but they are still making bank on a kid's shooter. You add the adult shooter to that. You have given not only fangs but claws to Nintendo. You have, and that's something else that we're going to start hearing about. Many people are going to have opinions about this. Hargeet, you just said it. They're going to give it back to Sony, and I'm talking about Nintendo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So-
turnaround's coming. The turnaround's coming, right? So Nintendo was forced out of the market they were in, because remember, Nintendo was the dominant, right?
Right.
They were the
Yes.
dominant,
Mhm.
and Sega was like always trying to get on their heels and bring competition. And then Sony came in and wiped everybody out, and Nintendo couldn't compete. So it's like, you know what? We're gonna
Sega
go
couldn't
do it-
compete.
Go do something
Neo
else,
Geo couldn't compete.
right? They all folded, right? And
They all just bowed out. Yeah.
so
Mhm.
so Nintendo said, fine, we'll carve a different path, and we're not going to do the console to the lost thing, because we can't afford it, because third parties aren't coming to us. So we're going to do something different and just bank on our own IP.
And it worked.
It worked for them.
Hey,
It worked
hey,
for them. The
Hargeet.
Wii was great. The Wii U was just marketed wrong because nobody understood what a Wii U was, right? So
Right.
that
Bad
failed.
marketing.
That
Yeah.
failed. And then Switch has been fantastically successful. It's going to beat the PS4,
So,
right? So going forward, it looks like from this deal, I'm also inferring, just take that basically, they will have a console coming out in the next couple of years
Mhm.
that will actually be able to run COD
Yep.
natively on that console, which means all third parties are now going to be able to put their stuff on Nintendo. So Nintendo will no longer be a sideshow It's going to be the main show. With their own IP, they will sell. Those consoles will sell.
Yeah.
On top of that, they're going to have all the third parties, and the third parties can't wait because they're going to have good competition. Sony is going to now have to compete in the market to say, I have a reason for you to come to my system, right? And the reasons they have, as King pointed out, aren't good enough. The God of War did not bring PlayStation higher numbers than freaking Xbox, who had nothing.
Well, hold on a minute.
That's crazy.
About that, does anyone think that some of that could be a chess move on Sony's part?
No.
It absolutely could be. It absolutely could be.
Meaning,
And
hold
there's
on a
plenty
minute.
of chess moves being played, right?
Right. So,
Here goes conspiracies.
Yep.
Yeah. So think about this,
Conspiracy
right?
time.
If you know this holiday, the regulators are all deliberating and they're watching Xbox's position in the market.
Yep.
And you know, for the most part, you sell every unit you can produce.
Yep.
What if you sort of moved around the production pipeline so that there were less on store shelves this holiday, so that you could say, see, look how they're selling and look where we are. If we lose COD, this would be even worse for us.
And that Everborn is awesome, right? Because basically the point of a regulatory agency is not to provide Sony protection. That's not their job.
That's correct. Yes.
It's not for
Tell
Sony
it
to
CMA
exist in the
then.
market.
I don't know if the
Sony
CMA
could
got that
fold.
memo.
It doesn't matter as long as there is a market, right? So
Right.
any given competitor, because look, Sony did it to everybody else, right? Sony killed the entire market. Right?
Yep.
They did that. That's in their history. They did that. So it's not for regulators to come in and, oh, poor Sony, the market leader would suddenly not be the market. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's in fact better for consumers if other players dynamically come in and start making better moves to attract more customers. That's a good thing. Whether it's Nintendo or Microsoft, that's good. That's what you want, right? Dynamism in the industry. And if Sony's becoming complacent and saying, this is what we're going to do, it's locked to this and you can do nothing different, right? That's not good for consumers, right? Their answer is pay $70, pay more and more, pay pay $50 more for the console. And the other guys are saying, no, we can give you different options to make it better, right? And Xbox has certainly been leading in this, giving you Game Pass. They haven't increased the game, their console prices. They in fact have discounted their console prices during this holiday season, right? They've given you massive discounts. Both the X and the S have been discounted, right? So they're going the opposite direction, right? So this is only good. So yes, everyone, that could be something where Sony is trying to play this game, but it's going to backfire because ultimately the regulators are looking for consumers and they're looking for the market, right? So as long as the market is healthy and this deal ends that discussion, right? Sony is not the only one who can play Call of Duty now. Nintendo can, right? And that ends that discussion. They have a competitor that signed a 10-year deal. They've got competition in the market. They've got Steam. That question's over. So Sony has basically backed themselves into a corner. I don't know how well that's going to work for them. I agree. Game Pass is what they are afraid of because they have a money train going on by selling $70 games.
And charging people $10 for the upgrade fee, charging a crossplay tax.
Crossplay tax is the other big one. And I don't know how that gets fixed. Maybe that needs to be more of a legislative thing that you can't do that kind of thing. It's very anti-consumer.
Yeah,
well, it's also anti-developer, right?
Anti-developer.
Take profit from some other platform and say, I'm going to assign that back to me. That's really crazy, right? That's really crazy.
But you get away with it by being the market
leader.
Yes, when you are the undisputed champion, people bow to you, and now Sony doesn't like the fact that no one is bowing to them anymore.
Yeah.
And that is a fact, folks.
Not a problem till now.
Fact.
Yeah, and whoever mentioned it, right? The other players in the industry, they are liking this because they're seeing, hey, there's going to be somebody else pushing for my value, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing for me, right? I'm getting better options. This is great for me. So everybody else except Sony is complaining, right? So the opposite. Like, Sony's the only one complaining. Everybody else is like, this is kind of good. I like Microsoft pushing, right? I'm going to have some competition here and I can make better contracts for me. That sounds like a good thing, right? And Nintendo's coming around with a console that I can put my stuff on. This is great. This gives me options, right? And of course, the entire industry is moving to mobile. because that's just
Yeah.
reality, right? 70% plus of the revenue in gaming is mobile.
Well,
Right.
and that's
So-
what ABK is really about too, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
It is. It is
part of
the
it,
king.
right?
Yeah.
they're a mobile and PC company that, aside from Call of Duty, that is the only game
Yeah.
that is a console game. I mean, they make other console games occasionally, but
Yep.
really their money is mobile and PC, and mobile by far, then PC, and then Call of
Yeah.
Duty. So
Yeah,
if Call of Duty is staying on everything, this is really like Sony almost has nothing. Like, so this is where I disagree with Everborn, and I have to push back against your conspiracy theories because
I have more conspiracy theories. by the way.
Of course.
I really don't see it. I agree with you when you say, okay, Sony's already they've already kind of gone past the point of no return in terms of this. So at this point, they might as well. It's like you're in the game. It looks like you're going to lose. You might as well keep playing the game, right? Because you can't do anything else at that point in time. There's never been precedent in terms of a market leader stopping a competitor that they have a large lead over from making a vertical integration with taking from a supply chain that is pretty wide and is growing, right? Like there is no precedent in the entire, in all these cases, all these conversations people have been having, not one person has been able to come up with an example of, here's an example of this time, and this is where Sony could kind of lean on this one example, this precedent, this court case, this thing that went through that, that's, because that's what you do when you go to court. You look for precedent, right? You look for a situation, an example, something that you can use. Now, the thing is, we are in unprecedented times. There's been a lot of political movement against big tech, and for political people, they have to show something to the public. And so that's why they came out and they said, well, what about the employees? And Microsoft said, okay, we hear you on the employees. We're going to allow the unions, right? They say, well, what about the consumer? What about options? Well, here they go now. And we're going to create more options than you ever had before. 10-year deals across the board. Before this year, it wasn't on Valve or it wasn't on Steam. Now it's going to be on Steam for 10 years. It's going to be on Nintendo. It's going to be everywhere, right? So basically, what they've done is they've checked off every single box, and they are giving the political people some sort of win. That's what they need,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
To show they're doing their job. They're going to give them some concessions. And I say concessions in quotes because these are things that Microsoft was essentially okay with, right? And so there's really, there's absolutely no play here for there's no hand. There's sometimes you just don't have a hand that you can win with, right? and I understand where Sony was coming at the beginning to get as much as they could. I always said it was a risk with Jim Ryan doing this because in the process of this full court press, this blitz that they put on to try to get the deal stifled or maybe just delay it as long as they could. You can understand why a business might make that play, but the danger is that they've in the meantime have set a perception amongst the industry. Forget about what gamers or what us on podcasts talk about. You think about the industry, the developers, they hear this, the other companies hear this, they threw EA under the bus, in the process. You hear Gabe Newell come out and say, we don't need this. He's come out here with swag, right? And that's the thing Sony used to always come out there with. They had that swag. We are the big dogs. We ain't even worried about you. We're not even, basically we're not going to respond to you. We do our own thing. We don't need to be at E3. We're going to do our own thing because we are the market leaders, and I think in the process here, I think they've sacrificed a little bit when it comes to that. And so when the dust clears and Call of Duty's everywhere and this deal closes, you now have that perception out there. You said to all your developers, we don't believe you can make a Call of Duty equal. Even though EA's come out with Apex, which is up there, we don't, we've already said that, right? So we fought against this thing where now it's highlighted. Microsoft is allowing union workers, and I understand it's not for all the developers right now, it's QA, but they've opened that door within big tech, right? And that is something, and people understand that is an important thing, not just for these QA workers, but that can have a snowball effect, right? And that always will sit there as an option for other developers and other studios. And it's also going to start setting, it might create some cracks in big tech outside of Microsoft, right? Because you have to
Yeah.
compete now, right? So there's a lot of I think right now what's happened is Sony has got cornered. Like all of their playbook, every single thing has been blocked. All those plays have been
Well,
taken away.
Yep.
And I don't see where there is to go from there.
I
So
wanted to
just-
add. Oh, so go ahead.
Just one thing there. I think just I guess to add on a little bit. One, so I don't know if the rest of the industry is going to care because they know this is just business. They know it's not show friends. They know Sony doesn't believe what they're saying, and I think everyone gets that because most people have said that. However, so I don't think the risk is to their industry reputation. I do think there's a risk to the air of their kind of, they have the PlayStation fragrance, as Jay Barry calls it, right? I think there's a risk to that, but the real tangible risk here,
third-party money hats. How easy are those?
Well, that's another one, but that's going to be because Microsoft's going to gain market share. So again, the way they're acting now is not going to affect that. What will be affected, however, is in this open negotiation with Microsoft, their stance of I'm going to talk to regulators because I think it's easier than talking to you. They are at no stronger position in this negotiation than they are right now, because right now Microsoft is pliable to say, well, what do you want? We'll give you a little bit extra. But now they are running the risk of this deal closing without their consent or without their cosign, right?
Yes.
So if Microsoft can convince regulators that that Take-Two and all the other publishers in the industry and Nintendo and Valve are enough to say that this is not going to significantly hurt competition, now when Sony wants to take that deal, maybe Sony could have got a little bit of marketing rights, like maybe being able to mention it in a commercial or print it on a console. They're not getting any of that now.
After 2024, they're not getting anything.
But what I'm saying is they could have negotiated something.
I hear you.
And now they're just going to have to
they
take
definitely did the
terms
risk or reward
are given to them.
Yeah, now there probably won't be any concession for that.
There's no sweeteners.
So I just wanted to add,
get that now. Right?
These are just concessions. These aren't concessions. These are concessions.
Not concessions. I'm saying they could get something extra from Microsoft now. They're never more powerful in their negotiations
right now
than they are now.
To be honest with you, I mean, I want Hargeet add your point, brother. Because
I wanted to add this one quote from the CMA disclosure. One third party explained that Nintendo's business model differs from that of Sony's and Microsoft's, and that Nintendo competes more closely with companies outside of the gaming industry. For example, Nintendo has products such as Wii Fit, which are not traditional games and may compete with fitness apps and other non-game apps. This third party also explained that Nintendo's audience differs from other consoles, as its games are marketed as family-friendly with less focus on heavy violence or shooting games. And I wonder what third party that was.
Oh yeah, that would be Sony.
And they basically have destroyed that point and made Sony look like fools.
Yeah, indeed.
Because that entirely came from them. And they certainly thought Nintendo was a crap company that has nothing to do with gaming. Nothing to do with gaming. It wasn't even the fact that they were family friendly. They don't make games. I'm like, really? So put it in your face, Sony. Have fun with that one.
You know what's interesting to that point? An unworthy Nintendo game by many accounts called, I don't know, Zelda Breath of the Wild. What did that do to Sony's first party Horizon Forbidden West? You know what it did? It spanked its ass, put it in the corner, and closed its door.
But you don't have to
go
that far,
home, kid, is what happened.
What about Pokemon?
There you go.
That just did 10 million in 3 days, and this may be, by what people are saying, the worst Pokemon game.
And by the way, that's 2-1 for God of War Game of the Year of the universe.
Yeah.
Well, and people aren't saying it's the worst Pokemon game. They're saying it's the worst performing game on Nintendo currently.
Yes.
It's the performance.
You know,
not
first
the
of
game.
all, I want to welcome in. I want to welcome in Steel Rain. I sent them a DM, folks, and I simply said, we need to have you make it rain on primetime gaming.
man,
And
no.
here he is, ladies and gentlemen.
Appreciate you.
Listen, brother, this news broke, and
Yeah.
we have so many on the panel. We're gonna get to everybody. This news broke at 11:17 last night. It sent the interwebs on fire. We are now, 20 plus hours into it. There's been a lot of commentary. Like I said, you weren't here. The industry has now circled the wagons, and Sony is now surrounded. PlayStation is the monkey in the middle, if you will. They are the cheese in that game that they go around pointing, and if you're the cheese, then nobody wants to be your friend, right? That's ultimately where Sony is right
Hey,
now.
you know what eats cheese?
Rats eat cheese, which is what I would
Oh.
consider Jim Ryan, but that's a horse of another color. Steel Rain, you've heard. I don't get a chance if you heard what King had to say, but
Yeah,
Hargeet
thank
and OBM have knocked it out of the park. Obviously, Everborn has had a lot to say. We're going to get to Crispy and Asante momentarily. What are your thoughts of the industry coming out to not only defend this deal, and we're not just talking about the gaming industry, we're talking about the work industry, the CWA, the biggest union in the entire country, has said this deal has to go through because Microsoft is going to do things for our workers, our union members, that no one has ever done in gaming history. This is one of the biggest deals besides the money amount. It is the ramifications of them saying, listen, you want unions? It's not a problem. We're going to be neutral on this. You make your unions. You have you have your members have a seat at the table. And they're doing it right now with the folks, the fine folks, the testers at Bethesda. They're now forming their union, and Microsoft is like, yeah, that's not a problem. You got Gabe Newell out there saying, hey, we don't even need a contract. We love Microsoft and we trust them, and they've always delivered. And Nintendo, the one company that Sony said doesn't matter, the one company that makes Wii Fit, which hasn't been made in years. I'm looking at you, CMA. They just signed a 10-year Call of Duty deal, returning the franchise to the platform that has not seen it since the Wii. What are your thoughts on this deal, Rain?
Oh man, this has been a long journey, just flipping on its head. And I'll also say that karma is a B, and we want to keep it edited here. The reason I say this is because, again, if you've been paying attention, if you're a gamer, I'm pretty sure you have seen the way the industry has unfolded within the last 2 decades, right? Sony has been the go-to console for a lot of people, so they have a lot of sway, especially being as world recognized as they are. And unfortunately, Microsoft has always had not a good smell to them in certain aspects as far as business goes. Even outside of gaming, still currently, there are other things going on outside of gaming for Microsoft that is causing them internal issues, but they're working on things and they have gotten better. For me, I feel like this is, again, Sony has been constantly trying to upplay this as much as possible. And the main reason for that is because if they can get this deal held up at all, and I'm not the only person who has said this or is going to say this, it's going to do them justice, right? They're severely behind the service game. They are severely behind as far as retention goes. And just because your competitor that you made in 2017, well, way before that, honestly, reevaluate how they see business and are successful making multiplayer games, are successful at creating services. You made them reevaluate things, and now you're mad that they're trying to change the industry and bring more accessibility than we have ever seen to this day. But somehow that is a problem. And it's only a problem because it doesn't fit into how business has been done previously. Phil brought the same point up on the podcast, Second Request. I don't know if this podcast was done today, yesterday, but they did a recent interview with Phil. And he says he's saying those same sentiments. We are not trying to do anything other than grow gaming. And again, sure, it's a business. He's supposed to say those things. He's supposed to smile in our face, make us feel good, get a little tingly feeling in our stomach. When you turn your Xbox on, oh, we want to praise Phil, right? That's his goal. And he's done that very well. But the fortunate thing for Microsoft is that they have been working towards this goal since at least 2017. I don't know what broader picture needs to be painted. Maybe I need to put it in 8K for you, but Microsoft is the only company, not person, company that has spent $100 billion to make gaming more financially available and more accessible to more gamers potentially, because we still don't know if this is going to work. So again, Microsoft is putting a gamble into what they feel like is going to be the right move. One, because they have their thumb on the pulse this time around. They're not ahead of the game with TV, trying to pitch things to us all digitally when we're not ready yet. Things are 70% plus digital. So they have a real chance to step into this. Again, I'll mention something else he mentioned in that podcast, where he does not like being compared to Netflix or Hulu because the businesses are not the same.
Right.
To him, at least.
Yeah.
The way that you consume content within gaming and the way that you consume content in these television services or movie services, whatever, is different from each other. And he feels like there's so much of more of an accessibility point for the 3 billion people he wants to reach than there may be in other spaces. Sony is going to continue to placate this as much as possible. Again, I've said this on Live a Split Screen on Saturdays that if anything stops this deal going through, honestly, I don't get the point why there has to be concessions. It doesn't have to be. Right? I
agree.
Again, Sony continuously comes out and says that, hey, our internal studios, the more you fight this, the more you are saying that your internal studios cannot do what Call of Duty does. And that's fine. But how does that make you look? You're supposed to be the strong force within this industry. You're supposed to be the one that led everybody to where we are today, that you made people think that your third person over the shoulder action adventure games are the thing that people need, but they don't sell. You double down, triple down. And now Microsoft sees a prime opportunity to step into the space again. 29 million. Sony had to bring that number out because Xbox hadn't up to this point. And it's going to continue to grow. First-party games are going to do a huge justice to Microsoft going into 2023, and it's going to, again, it's going to be real interesting to see how Sony ends up playing themselves within the situation. I don't know. People out there believe that Factions is coming out next year. What they showed me last year, I don't believe so. Unless they got some special thing to show me at the Video Games Awards tomorrow. That's the only thing that I'm excited for from Sony.
Yeah.
So
next year it could be a barren wasteland.
Just on that, I don't believe that for 1 second, and the reason this whole process has been on the one hand interesting, but on the other hand, like just ridiculous, because everything Sony has been saying has strained credulity. Meaning Sony will be fine with or without COD.
Absolutely,
they will be. And they are lying to regulators. And they
absolutely are.
Right? Market dominance will change.
But
that's what's going to change.
The thing that throws that into question, though, Everborn, the only reason I question that is because if that's the case, then why do you keep saying what you're saying? You can say, "Oh, it's business; they need to make themselves seem a certain way." But also, look at their current. They have an issue with keeping people within their ecosystem.
Yeah,
they're already faulting. PlayStation is what they have to rely on.
Yep.
They're not
money making for SIE proper.
You cannot wait 5 years to sell 30 million copies of a game.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. And mark my words here. There's another Everborn prediction. Mark this down, chat, everybody. You are going to see the moment the Activision deal closes, you're going to see the greatest PlayStation show maybe in its history.
They have to.
And
you're right.
And they're holding that back, and it will be 2016 levels of, what do you call it? And I guarantee you the truth will come out, and they will say, "Oh, we didn't really care about COD." This is what they're going to say. They are full of shit right now.
Yeah.
They're full of shit. And that's what makes all of this hilarious to me.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Speak because I want to bring Crispy and Casanti into here. But Crispy, before I bring you into the conversation, I want to read you what Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, had to say, and he says this, folks: our acquisition will bring Call of Duty to more gamers and more platforms than ever before. That's good for competition, and it's good for consumers. Thank you, Nintendo. Any day Sony wants to sit down and talk, we'll be happy to hammer out a 10-year deal for PlayStation as well. Now, if you ever wanted to, take a peek into the wheelhouse of Sony's studios, now granted, this is just one person, but this is the sentiment that is being put out there by Sony. I will not give you his name because we will not weaponize this podcast to go and hunt for others. I'm going to read you what he wrote, and I'm going to read you then what I wrote. But again, I don't mention names because we don't do bullying here. He says this, folks, replying directly to Brad Smith, president of Microsoft. He says this, folks: seems like the PR campaign to appease regulators is in full swing. This is so bad for gaming as a whole. Microsoft to just use its massive fortune to buy up any studio it pleases to eventually smother the competition is terrible. 10 years is nothing when you own the IP forever. And if you want to know who this said person is, again, I won't give you his name, but I will tell you where he's from. He's one of the principal environment artists within SIE or PlayStation Studios. So my response to him was this: PlayStation has been bullying the entire marketplace for years with anti-consumer behavior and tactics, continues to do what they want unchecked, and now that Microsoft has doubled down on its gaming division, somehow this is wrong. Now, Crispy, I definitely want to get your take on what everyone had to say, get your opinion on what I just read, but I got to catch up at least on the first 5 super chats. I mean, there has been so many of them, folks. I cannot thank you enough. And we just had a massive bomb come in from someone I've never even seen the name before. So I want to thank I'll get to who wrote it, but here are the first 5, and then what I'll do is I'll do 5 at a time so we can get everyone to give their opinions. The first one of the night comes to us from Drawn TJ, drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Hey, Boom and panel, last night's news was crazy. Indeed it was." Decado drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, "Gabe Newell is the effing boss. I did not see him going out there like that." Yeah, me either. I was blown away. Our RWK_88 drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Damn, what a good looking panel, Boom. Thank you for that, sir. I love putting these Avenger level panels together because, well, I love the opinions, and everyone here, in my opinion, is a rock star." Paul Drew in the chat drops a £5 super chat and says, "What an awesome panel, Boom. Looking forward to the show." Thanks, Paul. Definitely appreciate the generosity, but more importantly, the kind words. J-Mo Money drops a $2 super chat and says, "Sony's going to cave quicker than the creator of Sonic." Oh, no.
Wow.
I don't know.
Hashtag free knocker. That's all I got to say.
All right. So,
Hey,
Crispy Bomb,
Game of the year.
you have been very vocal about this deal since its inception. You've been very vocal about the coyness of Sony, of how they're limping into the courtroom saying, "Yeah, that's the guy that beat me," but yet they have been the bully for decades. They have strong-armed developers and publishers into paying for things that normally are not a thing. And they have done that because they are the market leaders. And what they are fearful of is losing that said market share. And there's a good chance with now Nintendo potentially bringing out another console that can run massive third-party games like Call of Duty, Sony could logistically fall to third place. And they're going to have to do some weird things that they did on the PlayStation 1 and 2 and 3 and go back and bring back Resistance Fall of Man. Go back and have Bungie maybe carve out a new way to look at SOCOM to challenge Call of Duty. What are your thoughts of the recent news that now Nintendo, the family friendly, the one that doesn't actually count, that makes Wii Fit, is now going to have Call of Duty like everyone else for a decade.
Man, boom. I mean, Nintendo not doing anything is news to me. Like they're not involved in gaming. I mean, are you kidding me right now? Like the stupidity that, the CMA has done over time and just saying, irrelevant things that have no substantial, knowledge to the actual gaming industry is incredible to me. I mean, it's basically like they're just spewing stuff out that Sony tells them and not actually looking at it. And, continuing to, push certain narratives that Sony's done when they're being so hypocritical themselves. I mean, even that person in their response, I mean, how old are you? Do you realize that a lot of these companies that have died because other companies got bigger is because they chose not to change. They chose not to make certain choices, like putting your games day and date in a subscription, that has killed these companies. Everybody remember Blockbuster? Remember how they could have bought Netflix, but they didn't. Guess what? They chose not to. Instead, they chose to create the all access and try to compete with Netflix. And guess what happened? It just didn't work. Okay. And Sony is at a crossroads right now, and they don't know what to do. They have seriously overlooked multiplayer in the exclusive category for years. They have went straight on to what some people would call a cookie cutter style to their games. And they are amazing for what they are. But if you tell me that they aren't very similar, many of them, I mean, you haven't been gaming long enough. Okay. Because, you go and look at these games and you're like, yeah, I mean, we get the story, we get the beauty, the graphics, we understand that, but you don't give anybody any multiplayer anymore. I mean, you completely ignored it at this point. And now they're reeling. And now your biggest game for multiplayer on your platform, you are afraid is going to go into a competing service. We're not even going to go about it's going to be just that. It's not going to just be on Xbox, okay? This 10-year deal happens whether they sign it or not, because not only that, everybody's ignoring the fact that Microsoft wants to buy more. And if they don't look as good as possible with this deal, they're going to get a whole heck of a lot more kickback than they're getting now.
Later.
Now,
yeah.
if they play by what they have said, which, I mean, for all accounts, besides one thing with VR, Phil has been to his word of just about everything to not only the gamers ourselves, but the industry in general. And this is why they have backed Microsoft. And you could really attribute that to Satya and Phil. And their decisions over this period of time have made people realize that Microsoft isn't what they were in the beginning of the 2000s and the late 90s.
Mhm.
They are a new breed. They have circled it and rallied and said, we are more about gaming than ever now. And now we are really going to put our full effort in. But, to those people that say, and defend Sony on this, you got to realize that they did this back in the day as well. They got slighted by Nintendo, okay, to have a partnership to make a console. And they got slighted at the last possible hour and decided, you know what? We're going to rally everything. They killed divisions to make PlayStation what it is today, okay? You remember the Walkman and stuff? What happened to all that stuff? It slowly died because they wanted one sole goal, to make games. And at one point in time, their multiplayer games were top notch. And then they just vanished. And now you see these games as a service games. They are reeling. They know they're reeling. We all know this. I just don't understand some of the context that people put in their heads. This is competition. This is what it should be. And it just so happens that Microsoft has said, look, we're going to hold ourselves accountable to not only the regulators, the actual people themselves, the consumer, okay, by putting this out in the open, which not all of these things go like this, okay, and saying, you know what, we're going to hold ourselves accountable to everyone. And that is how we're going to do it. And
Yes.
and you know what? And they are planning out ahead. Yes, that $70 thing, that was probably completely on purpose. They said, you know what, we got to do this now. We don't want to look like it's because the deal we're doing this. It's all about optics at this point. And I mean, it is like I'm at like 85% right now. This deal goes through like early, like February next year. I think it's done. And,
Yeah, I agree.
It's just because, also, the CWA, That's a big thing, at least in America. Like, that's huge. That is absolutely huge.
And believe it or not, to that point, that's a great point. I want to bring this up and let you run with it. If I recall, the 4 New York senators that had a real issue with this deal, Lena Khan, her initial complaint about this deal is, we're concerned for workers. What are the workers' rights are going to be? Well, that has been addressed just yesterday by multiple members of the CEA, including the president, who not only went to social media, did multiple interviews saying, no, we are for this deal because Microsoft is standing by their word. We have unions now.
Yeah, and that's because Microsoft, being in the position they are as a tech giant, doing something that basically I don't even think they've had the opportunity to have these conversations with any other tech giant, okay, says so much. And I think they look at this for unions in general, because this being the largest one, saying, look, this is good for the worker. This is good for, the environment, working environment. This gives people the opportunity to have a choice. And, Microsoft saying, we're basically them saying they're neutral. They're not going to put out, because if you've ever been in retail, anything like that, once in a while you start getting union reps coming around and they go and say, okay, this is why you don't want to be a part of a union. If a union guy comes in the store, you're not, they give you this whole like spiel about this stuff. And basically Microsoft saying, we're not going to do that. And you know what? We're going to come to the table like they always do with unions, and we will have the negotiation, whatever, part of the company is doing that. You know what I mean? And I think Microsoft hopes that, as people get into their ecosystem, realize that, hey, maybe we don't need a union. Maybe this is good enough. You know what I mean? And that's something that they have to make their own choice. But for them as a big tech giant to be one of the first to actually say, we're willing to do this, this actually needs to happen for that union. It really does. It's important, very important.
It's going to set a precedent across an industry that has been anti-union for decades. Voice actors in gaming, they have a union, and that union is very strong. But the development communities, the human beings that actually make these games for every console that we love and spend so many hours of our lives playing, well, they have always been, they haven't been represented. And the fact that Microsoft is opening the door for that, you can say what you want. Oh, Microsoft is doing it just to get the deal done. Well, sure, but that's because the people have asked for it, and they said, no, we will answer this call. So on top of everything they're willing to do, is give Call of Duty to everyone for 10 years, they're allowing for unions to be a part of the conversation for the first time in gaming history. So besides this deal being the biggest monetarily, in tech or in gaming, it has a significant amount of substance to it on the back end, to the people, the human element that everyone seems to forget to talk about. Yes.
There's a couple of other interesting points there, right? I think one brother, you brought this up. It was for the QA folks. The main issue is the QA folks, right? They're the least paid.
Yes.
They're the most overworked.
Yes.
And we say, oh, it's not skilled. Dude, they have to play every game in every mode. They have to be able to finish a game in hard over and over and over and over again, because they have to find every bug, every potential issue with every build, right? Yeah. So no, in fact, they are very skilled. They have to be, and they get paid like crap, and they're the ones who have to crunch the most near the end of development, because that's when it has to be finished. That's when it has to be cleaned up. Every bug needs to be fixed, right? And so, Microsoft just at the beginning is going to say no crunch, right? That is their philosophy, company wide. So that alone is a massive deal, right?
Yeah.
Then you bring in that the union's going to be able to say, okay, no, their pay structure has to be like this. Their work ethic has to be like this, right? This is a big deal. When somebody at Microsoft's level, because that's going to flow beyond just ABK, it's going to start going into Zenny. It's going to start going into Microsoft Studios. And then this massive publisher in the industry is going to say, well, we do it. Everybody else has to start paying attention.
Well,
right?
and Hargy,
So-
just to back you up, I don't know if you but we talked about this before, but we had a former 343 developer or QA tester
Yep.
on You Had Me at Halo, and he talked about going to 343 and being a QA tester and basically living out of his car. And he said like waking up one day and realizing he might make more just going to McDonald's, and that was just the standard for QA testers.
Yeah.
And really the point that and people kind of miss this too, like when you just focus on, hey, it's just for QA testers. First of all, they're the ones that are, like you're saying, Hargy, they're the ones that are being the most underpaid, the most overworked, basically the most taken advantage of, right? And that's the point of unions. It's for people to be able to kind of group together who don't have a lot of power. The creatives have a lot of power. If you are one of the best writers, one of the best artists in the industry, you can go anywhere. You can, and especially in this remote work environment, you put your resume out there, have people fight over you. You have power right now with the way the industry is. If you are somebody who's starting entry level, you don't. And so that is the whole point of being able to create this opportunity. And this isn't just a gaming specific problem. This is a tech industry wide thing that and where I think they're going to win some of the politicians is the fact that this now does create a crack. Like I said before, it creates a crack within the big tech, and if you start establishing, others will start to grasp onto that, right? So yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that point.
And it's a big statement move for sure. Listen, I want to bring in Kay Asante. Kay, before I bring you in, brother, I want to catch up on a few of the super chats. Brett Bingham drops not one but two super chats. The first one of $2 says Jim Ryan is being a straight up Dale. Now, if you don't want to know what he means, he means he's being a Karen. That is the male version of a Karen, according to Brett Bingham. So he's trying to adopt that he's a Dale. And you know what? If your name is Dale, I feel sorry for you because now you're going to be like the Karens of the world. Brett Bingham drops an additional $5 super chat and says Phil Spender, in his Batman suit, says, "You smell that? It smells like fear." I love that. KS Mike drops a $5 super chat and says it was Nintendo's fault that they lost Final Fantasy VII because they stuck with cartridges instead of going to CDs for the N64. Yeah, that is definitely the running story for sure. Kirby Zero Louise asks this after dropping a $5 super chat: exclusives don't sell consoles except for Nintendo. Okay, please explain the Wii U then, with a winky face. Yeah, well, the Wii U was not marketed very well, and it was a lot of people didn't even know. People didn't even know that was a console. It was that was really on Nintendo. NC Ghost of Low Row drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Just got done playing Sonic over on ILP. Came through to show some love. I've been waiting for this all day. Awesome panel." Well, thank you, brother. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, of course, for the kind words. We also have Drawn TJ dropped a generous $2 super chat and says, "Sony messed up." Indeed, they did. Bix Hutch drops a $5 super chat and says, "Who would have thought that a Pentiment would be a bigger system seller than God of War Ragnarok? Go figure." Dragon Heart Yobi, my brother, what's going on? He drops a $5 super chat and says, hashtag peace, love, and life to you all. When the Wii U first dropped, I legit thought it was an accessory add-on to the Wii. Stay safe. All major love to the gents. Thanks so much for you and all the love as well. Okay, well let's talk to Kay Asante. Kay Asante, you and I were having some conversations behind the scenes throughout the day. You know, we talked very early with Everborn Saga, and then we're going to get him to drop his bars as well. Where do you feel Sony is at in this crossroads that everyone keeps talking about? Because when you start to see the Gabe Newells and the Zelnicks and the Nintendos, three of the biggest publishers, or platforms in gaming, back the Microsoft brand on this deal, it really does put them at an ugly light. And like I said it before, I think they are burning bridges with friends of the industry that may no longer want to work with Sony or certainly give them the accolades that they were doing before.
I first and foremost, well, I think you're onto something there, Boom. But before I get into that, let me first and foremost let us all take a moment and shout out to the man Steel Rain for joining us. It's been a minute since I had a podcast with the man, so of course I have to shout him out. it's very rare to get on a podcast with a man who's on the show at the same time you are. So when it happens, it's
True.
an event. You know what I'm saying? So there we go. But no,
Much love.
I appreciate a lot of the comments being made here. Obviously, all valid points that have been made by our stellar panel here. You know, chopping it all up. I don't have too much extra to add. All I will do is I will add a nugget that a lot of people may not necessarily pay attention to. And that's the fact that we have what I consider militant execs. There are a few of them out there, right? You've seen them, you hear them all the time. When execs get to a certain level of money, certain level of notoriety, their words are very carefully chosen, except for a few militant execs who use their money, their power, their influence to try and change things and change people. People like Tim Sweeney from Epic Games, you hear him all the time. When he's got a bone to pick, everyone knows it. And that's a very odd thing to do because most people in that high level where they can control markets and move mountains with their words, they choose their words super carefully, right? So obviously you said Stress Zelnick, same type of individual. And in the same vein, Gabe Newell. Just Google Gabe Newell's name and Microsoft. He has mountains of smoke for Microsoft, even since the time he used to work at Microsoft.
Indeed.
He has been one of Microsoft's, the thorn in Microsoft's side forever.
He's been the stout antagonist, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. He like I would say like in the relationship of Microsoft to Gabe Newell and Steam in general, if Microsoft is Professor X, Gabe Newell is like Magneto. He's ready to smoke you whenever he feels the need. He likes you, but only as far as he can throw you. And there's so much evidence of that, like just so much. So the fact that he's coming out here, and the first thing he said that made a lot of our eyebrows raise was when a long time ago they did that quick question of, hey, which one's better, Xbox or PlayStation? He went, oh, because of this, that, and the other. Oh, Xbox. And we were just like, because this man, he has a hard time giving them credit because a lot of times they don't deserve the credit. And he's been there from jump, right? The only reason why Proton and Steam Deck exists today is because of how much Gabe dislikes Microsoft and their closed ecosystem. They've been trying to circumvent Windows for years, right? And they finally did it. And in the meantime, the decks, the seats have changed at these various companies. Yep. So the guy who used to be the one that the company they hated the most, they're now buddy. You know, Proton could literally like remove Microsoft now or Windows now as a gaming source. But why would you want to do that? They're buddy now. Like there is a lot that has changed that people kind of, you know, the cult of the new, right? You miss a lot of that context and a lot of that drama in the back. You know, this is all very interesting, right? When Meta/Facebook comes out and stands behind Microsoft, you appreciate the words they're saying, but then you see the sources coming from and you raise an eye and you go, maybe you should sit down, right? When Strauss Zelnick says it similar, you go, well, you know, his bread is buttered in multiple places, so maybe you should sit down. There's context here and there. But when someone like Gabe Newell, who spends all day just kind of ribbing Microsoft, the only person that I would be even more stunned about would come out in full-throated support would be somebody like Notch, who also really disliked Microsoft right until he gave them Minecraft, right? Yeah. So the deck chairs have changed a lot. So it's super interesting. And I know that those who spend time, you know, watching all the balls and strikes see this happening, and it's like it's a watershed moment. You know, we have to stop and really think about what this means. Right now, I think it's super interesting that all the partners are now like, you know, basically being called in to back up Microsoft. When all this stuff started happening, it reminds me of, you know, you've seen many a movie where all the heads of the mob families come and they have a conversation and they're no longer pleased with their leader, right? And all of a sudden the leader used to be the one who spoke and everybody be quiet. And now they're like, nah, we don't want him around anymore. Maybe we need new blood. That's what Zelnick is doing right now. Well, there's only one person really crying about this deal. Each and every one of the heads of the family are going, come on, man, y'all are crying too much. We need stronger leadership. So that's why Microsoft is now starting to look pretty good. It's a very interesting turn of events. They don't like what the market leader does or makes them do when they're the market leader, aka
right.
paying for a console parity. I see you there, Hargeet. aka paying for a parity across what do you call it, cross play and all this, the funny little hidden things that we find out later about that work in the market leader's favor because they're the market leader. They don't like all that little weird stuff that eventually becomes news. So if Microsoft is here going, well, we're first and foremost not going to do so much of the shady background stuff, and secondly, you know, we're going to be more out in the open with our business. All you need to do is back us and get rid of this dead weight here. Yeah, the change is coming, right? Yeah. Clearly, you can see their quote unquote, and I say partners in air quotes, because, you know, 1 minute they're cool, the next minute they sniping each other. But in this instance and in this situation, it is clear that even all the others who have been there, who are part of the established group, have decided that, yeah, Sony's gone too far, and, you know, it's time for a change. So to me, I think it's super interesting. I will just button all this up by saying it's so hilarious to me that Nintendo allowed themselves to be used as a pawn in this game, and they went, sure,
well,
to
their credit, they hadn't said anything, right? They were the one publisher that kind of just sat there, and they were like, they were like, yeah, we're
hold on a minute, Kay. I don't know if they've allowed themselves to be used as a pawn. They had a notoriously bad falling out with Sony.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, I know that.
And
I know
this
that
was an opportunity for them, because Nintendo's petty.
Oh yeah,
right?
of course they are.
If this was an opportunity,
this is their wait until the we like to strike when the iron's cold. And here's a black eye, Sony. This is their way of doing that.
They had to watch Sony for 25 years just win and win, even though they were winning too, right?
Sure.
But they had to watch Sony just be looked at as the head of the gaming industry. That's where they were, right?
Yeah, no, I do see.
And it was like, hold on, this is an opportunity to get you back after what happened with the whole because they used to be partners, right?
No, yeah, of course. See, and when I say pawn, I'm not saying that in a pejorative fashion, because let's be real here. This deal could have been done one way or another, and Microsoft and Nintendo could have made a deal that's not in public view and not for political effect. It could have easily gone that way. But Nintendo agreed to allow themselves to be used in this way, to be like, oh, let us inoculate ourselves by using the Nintendo argument. And they went, sure. Not only did they say sure, they signed,
by the way,
they signed the dotted line to really be like, yep, we with them.
They're in on it. Yeah.
What's the over under Nintendo announces an Azure cloud project with Microsoft?
That is come on now. That is
it's gotta be
weeks away.
That's ready.
I think there's been something brewing. I mean,
for a while now.
Yeah.
On that.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo is going to be the one to make Banjo-Kazooie. And it's going to be on both platforms.
You go. Last piece of the puzzle that I will drop in there, that a lot of people say that every time they say that, it just rubs me a little bit. Nintendo's not a family platform. I'm sorry. Yes, they have a lot of family stuff on there, but they also have stuff that is censored both on PlayStation and Xbox now.
Yes,
right now. Nintendo is the weirdest platform ever. They have dangerous SHIT on that stuff that I do not want my children being around, but somehow they're the platform of children.
And they have easy access to it.
Choice for purveyors of hentai.
Exactly.
Indeed. Yeah.
And there's easy access.
So, very easy. There's barely any family filtering thing you can do there. It's just like, why does Nintendo get away with this for as long as they have? And everybody goes, well, they're the family console. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Well, they have the family content, right? But yeah, that's the thing.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
just don't look over
They
here.
have a lot of other stuff.
Don't look behind this. Don't look behind that old movie rental studio sheet here. Don't look behind there. No.
Yeah, wasn't there a game that Sony actually censored part of it and Nintendo and Xbox didn't? Right? I can't remember the name of the game, but yeah, there was something recently, like in the last year.
Yeah, it was like one of the the quote unquote walking simulators. It was like a
Where
horror
they
game.
cut a kid's face.
Yeah, it was a
face
horror
or
game,
whatever.
and like you had to like
Yes.
yeah. So on the business model, isn't what's interesting here is that the Sony model of making very high budget, very high production value, and trying to sell that in the market seems to be failing the industry, not just Sony, because Sony can only sustain that by, according to them, having Call of Duty, whereas the Microsoft model seems to be working just fine, right? Their stuff, and they're doing quirky stuff. Grounded, like that's a small game that
Grounded and Sea of Thieves by all rights shouldn't
players,
exist.
right?
That's the truth.
Yeah, and Sea of Thieves is over 20 million, right? I mean, like, quirky games, right? They're like let's just try something live service. Let's just try it.
Is another
right?
one.
Yeah,
weird.
And that used to be Sony, by the way. Sony used to make quirky games. That's gone. They now make high budget.
They left that with Sean Layden.
Movie
right? And so, but the industry modeled after that and said, okay, we'll try that, and it failed, right? And like Square Enix is in trouble because they decided to model that, and that's. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd say no. I was going to say I just kind of because I know it's been kind of brought up a few times today. I do think. Like to say exclusives don't sell, I think there's like more nuance to that. Like as I'm a Halo fanboy, you guys know that, right? But when Halo comes out, I don't add another console sale because I'm already all in. I'm the enthusiast for that brand. So I do think Sony and this actually came up in I think it was either not the CMA but the Brazil documents. They looked at it. They said there's some markets. There's a certain percentage of people that will never move off of a PlayStation no matter what happens. They are all in. Microsoft could buy all the third parties. They would still stay there. And we saw the same thing with Nintendo. I think that what the problem is, and this will support to what you're getting at, is that, with big business, with any business, it's never really about having enough. It's about having more, right? You're always trying to grow, especially in a growing industry. The problem right now with that model is that it's kind of saturated or it's matured. It's kind of at its limit, just like Sean Layden said. It's not something that's really growing, so you can't keep growing the budget for those things and getting the same return, right? And so that's the sustainability of that. Whereas they're finding other models that are like. That are growing a lot, like freedom. Like if Microsoft did not step into this industry, if Microsoft would have said bowed out a few years ago, like when they were thinking about it, really where the industry was heading, and it may still be that with this way anyways, the money is in mobile and free to play. That's where it's been going. And so Microsoft coming in here and saying, we're going to invest $80 billion over a few years in AAA companies. Yeah. And there's going to be a mobile part of it with ABK, but investing in these traditional games so that we can throw them onto subscription and throw them into streaming in the future, what that really does is it keeps this model a lot. It gives this model some viability, or those types of games more viability than they would have had they just stayed out of the playing field to be together.
Changing the business model. Exactly. Right. Saying, okay,
it's saving those games.
I can still do those games. I don't have to spend as much on production value, but I can still give you those games, but I can sustain it by giving a subscription service where I have that recurring revenue that just sustains my teams, right? Where Sony's like, no, I want to sell it for $70. Look, it's a stark difference, and they're having to contend in their own words with the fact that they can't sustain that model, right? So this is an interesting thing that they're bringing up, and they have to realize themselves, and Microsoft's giving you a different option. Interestingly, Nintendo sustains themselves very well, and they have a mix of multiplayer and single player, right? But their games are just different. They don't spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make their game. They don't need to. The game works the way it is. It's gameplay and fun factor instead of visual fidelity and story cinematic elements, right? It just changes the thing. You don't have to do mocap and all that. Their games don't do that. They don't care. It works the way it is, right? So this is interesting from an industry perspective, what you should model after. And most companies have decided, hey, the live service thing, the free to play thing, that's working, and it sustains my publishing branch. I need to have that work. So they're starting to find that Microsoft's answer is better, right? That these are the better ways to go versus the Sony way, which this seems to have been doubled down. I guess it was Sean Layden and then into Jim's reign. It seems to be like this is just where they're going, is like these big budget things. But now they've realized that doesn't work. Why they're making 10 plus live service games is that they have to follow suit, and hopefully one or two of those will actually hit. and that'll sustain their business. And like this whole thing that they're gonna die, like, come on.
To suggest it is ridiculous. Listen, I do want to get Everborn Saga. He has some conspiracy theorist type of scenarios that he wants to throw in here. I do have to catch up on a few super chats, and then we will get to his opinion. We had one that come in from John Wolf, good friend of the program, who wanted to be here, who got stuck at work. He drops a $5 super chat and says, once the deal is done, Phil should play the Halo theme on every Call of Duty multiplayer match on PlayStation to the end of each match with a Game Pass logo. Being petty. I love it. We also had, like I said, a very big and large super chat come in from Parasite 82 Green. Drops a £45 super chat. Says, have a festive drink on me, fellas. If all goes well, I think the deal will be closed by April 2023, and then Microsoft will drop Diablo 4 in Game Pass as the first big release as soon as the deal goes through. Also bummed there will be no Mortal Kombat reveal. Of course, he's talking about the Game Awards. But I have a prediction for you, brother. It's not going to be Mortal Kombat that he's going to unveil. It is going to be Killer Instinct that he goes and he shows the world that the fine folks over at NetherRealm Studios have been working on. It's just a prediction and one that just gave me goosebumps because, well, I love Killer Instinct, and who better than NetherRealm Studios to deliver a proper KI reboot? We have Hadari Mac in the chat drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, thanks to Steam and Nintendo, Sony's wish list will have to shrink a fair bit. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Highlander 001 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, FTC's con overruled staff to sue Meta over VR app deal. The board voted 3-2 to let Meta acquire the developer. That is why one of the commissioners quit. Khan will take Microsoft's deal. Yeah, she will. She's going to take the deal because she is wasting millions of taxpayer dollars, and she does not want to add a fourth loss to her list.
I don't know that that's a certainty. I'll explain why.
No, you'll drop your bars in a second, and that's fine. I think that they're split. It's 2-2, which means that she would have to go out of her way to do this, and I don't think she's going to be allowed to. But again, that's just my opinion. Highlander 001 drops a $10 super chat, an additional $10 super chat, says that ZeniMax Studios is unionizing and Microsoft is encouraging it. The first unionized developers will be coming to Microsoft because it offers a better work environment, 100%. And that is why the deal is going to pass from the FTC, because you have to, again, account for the human element. We also have, let me see, Risk It for the Biscuit. What's going on? He is the lead voiceover at the Xbox Infinite podcast on Friday evenings. He drops an $8 super chat and says, when I picked up God of War Ragnarok, I saw 4 PlayStation 5s being sold for that game. They do sell consoles, but it is not enough. We also have a special Nick. Actually, he drops a £2 super chat and simply says, Abe smells, which I don't understand why, but okay. And Nate drops a $5 super chat and says, this is a podcast panel or a 2023 calendar shoot. I wish I had the body that I had when I was in my 30s, but I appreciate the kind words. Everborn, let's get your opinion on this, brother. You've been sitting. You have some conspiracy theories. You have some opinions about Lena Khan. What does this Gabe Newell backing of Microsoft and Nintendo signed 10-year contract do for everyone looking into this deal?
Okay, so I think it's super important that it is the two of them, right? And I think that this was always a part of the plan, right? And I think, again, I keep saying this, Microsoft strategy has always been, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way, right? So who is the biggest detractor of the deal? Let's try to see if we can give you what you want. Now, Sony has their reasons for not taking this, and I understand why. And if I were them, if I was looking at the future of this, and I was looking at my cards on the table, and I was looking at Microsoft's strategy, I might do the same thing. I don't know if I would snitch as much because there are downstream effects to that. Not in terms of like people are going to hold grudges, but I'll come to that later. But Sony's doing what they have to do. So now we have to do the hard way, right? And so Microsoft has been working with Valve for a very long time. Sony has not. Sony gives Valve leftovers, right? So who is a closer partner to Gabe Newell, Microsoft or Sony? And again, that can tell you everything you need to know. Now, we see how much of a boon Call of Duty is, and we also see how well Nintendo was able to do without it. And we also know Nintendo will have a new console coming out soon, and we also know that they are, even games that their current hardware can't handle, they have a cloud option for that. So Microsoft has also been a very good partner with Nintendo. Ori is one game, Minecraft is another game. So they've been working with them. And again, as I said before, Nintendo would love a chance to stick it to Sony, right? So that's how you get them on board. But again, the importance of it is these are platform holders. Gabe Newell is the market leader in terms of PC games. And that's not even a question. So you have the market leader in PC, right? And this is not a joke. This is a rival to Microsoft, right? Microsoft has been trying to get its Windows Store off the ground for PC games forever. And they have no foothold there. And they have Gabe Newell coming out in the way he did was specifically targeted at Sony. And why should he do anything for Sony, right? Right? There's more partnerships that can be had, right? Gabe Newell has been trying to get Game Pass or work out a deal to get Game Pass in Steam, right? He's said as much. So again, Sony has now sort of boxed themselves in to this corner, and will it pay off? This Lena Khan to me is the wild card, right? We know we say people are for sale, but there are some things going on in the FTC. Someone mentioned it earlier that the FTC had one of its members quit. So that commission is made up of 5 commissioners, right? And they're appointed by the presidents, and you can only have max 3 members from one party, right? So you have 3 Democratic members now, and you had 2 Republicans. But back in August of this year, one of the Republicans, they left the commission. They resigned. And the current administration has not been in any rush to refill that seat. So you have 3 Democrats, 1 Republican on that panel right now. They have to vote. Allegedly, the Republican is already on board. So Microsoft is working on one more Democrat. And one of those Democrats, I think, used to have Lena Khan's position, and another one of the Democrats.
Yeah, she was. She held that the chair.
Last name is Slaughter, I think.
Yes,
and
yes.
one of those Democrats is a former aide for Chuck Schumer, and Brad Smith is allegedly meeting with Chuck Schumer. We know he's in Washington now, talking to these people. So I'm saying all this to say, Lena Khan, who has publicly said they do not mind losing cases. And I'm not being political about this. I'm just giving you the landscape of what it is. I have not made any judgments on who should do what. What I am saying is they've said they don't mind losing cases, right? And how might it look to someone who is on record saying big tech is too powerful. They have their tendrils everywhere. How might it look that you are trying to evaluate this deal, and then the big tech company goes and reaches out to people on the panel? They go and they get the CWA, the unions, on their side through some mutually beneficial deal. They have all these publications now putting out articles talking about these things, these controlled leaks. What I'm saying is that could look like they're using their massive resources to control this thing and take advantage of the FTC. And for that reason, even though it is a losing case, could Lena Khan, a Lena Khan-led FTC, move to block or sue anyway, even though they know they will lose in front of a federal judge? I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't know that anyone does know the answer to that question.
I don't think that there's justification for it. She would be laughed out of the courtroom. And someone wrote a very interesting opt opinion that they put out there, and they said about specifically Lena Khan, if she was in charge of a business and there were investors behind her, she would have been fired.
But
because
she's
she
not
is losing money.
But that doesn't matter. She's not.
Yeah,
right?
It does matter, because you say she doesn't care about losing, but you're also wasting millions of taxpayers' money, and to say that publicly is ultimately bullish. Like, you don't care. Anyone could assume.
You know what, guys?
That
I think both of you are absolutely correct. Both of you are correct here. There is a case to be made that if you see a $70 billion deal come on your docket, and you are on record as being strong against big tech, and you don't bleed a little bit, you're not doing your job. But on the flip side, they'll also look at it and go, okay, you've done the best you can. We know precedent is on their side. Stop wasting money. So I think it will go forward, but it'll go forward just enough to satisfy.
And I think really what's frustrating here as a whole, Kay, is the fact like Microsoft isn't willing to sit down and have a conversation and say, what is it that you want that makes you comfortable? You see, and they are constantly doing that. What is it that we need to do to make you, Mrs. Lena Khan, and the FTC happy with this deal? You wanted unions. You wanted protection for workers. We're doing that right now. You wanted Call of Duty staying on the PlayStation platform because Sony said they can't live without it. We're giving it for a decade.
Hey, Boom!
They're constantly giving and giving and giving and giving. I find it ridiculous.
Are you ready for the conspiracy theory?
Oh yeah.
Do we got enough time for it? No.
So now check this out, right? You wanted unions, we gave you that, right? You wanted commitments to everybody in the industry. We gave them that in writing, and they came out. This is not like we're just saying we offered it. They accepted and then came out in favor of this. Now, what you also want to do is save consumers money. So what if we announce the price hike now, saying it's going up, and then we say, "Oh, Lena Khan, you know what? You pulled our arm. You know what? We're not actually going to go
back to $60. There we go."
Right? Think about it. Think about it just for a second, and then Lena Khan and the FTC could come out and say, "Look, not only did we get you unions, not only did we preserve competition because everybody's on board, we saved you money." Right?
I actually think you're sort of onto something. I'm wondering if the reason they went to $70 is because they're going to have to lock in and say they're not going to go over a certain price, and so they're just kind of getting that out of the way. And they'll basically, like a Game Pass or I could see the prices getting locked in a little bit.
I could see like them saying Game Pass can't be increased for 3 or 5 years. As a part,
I don't know about 5 years, but at least
3
years
years
sounds
like more. Three
a couple of years, I can see like it. Yeah, because unfortunately, like at some point, there might be financial issues that they can't foresee. Right? Let's say inflation goes really rampant, and at some point they have to sustain their business, right? So,
correct. Yes.
So, given those kind of parameters, I could see it. And Everborn, I think that's exactly why that came out now. Is because they're they're going ahead of the regulator saying, hey, look, we didn't do this after the deal was done. We're doing it
they
now.
couldn't. They could not
We're
do it
doing it
after
now,
the deal.
right?
The deal is done because
Yeah.
there's going to be something in there about raising prices.
Yeah,
Sony
of
has
course.
already accused them of that. The only other thing I do want to say
After
here
they
is
did it already.
right. I do find it hilarious that people thought that Sony's lawyers were going to outmaneuver
It's ridiculous.
the $2 trillion company's lawyers.
Yeah.
And
Like-
market push, right? I mean, like government push, like we're seeing it live, right? It is hard to not see the political connections, right?
And this is a
They have 'em.
Microsoft who, for the last 2 decades, even though they hold a monopoly with Windows, have just not been in any of the conversations around antitrust,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's looking at Facebook. People are starting to look at Apple. Everybody's skeptical of Google. Microsoft is over there making more money than almost all of them, and nobody's looked at them. You know why? Because they have their tendrils in Washington, around with regulators all around. All of this is because we could have done it the easy way. But if you want to do it the hard way, this is where we are.
Wow.
Well, I think
right?
they just know how to play the game, right?
Yeah.
Like
No, that's true.
they've learned how to say, "Oh, hey, we're going to be everywhere," and hey, we're going to be the good guys now. We're going to lead the way. Like they can see when something's going to kind of happen, and they're like the first ones to volunteer themselves to be the good guy. So they play the game really well. And the same thing with this union thing, right? Yeah, I'm sure they didn't want to introduce unions, but they see this is going to happen. So why not be the first ones and go, "Hey, look at us, we did it."
Like at what point does Jim Ryan wake up with a horse's head in his bed?
It might have already happened at least last night after what transpired at 11:17. He went to the bathroom, came went to have a glass of water or something, came back, and there was a pony head in his bed. And he was screaming.
Pony head.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we broke massive records today. We just missed 700 people in the chat.
Wow.
That is
Wow.
bonkers.
Wow.
I want to thank everyone that joined us today. I saw a ton of new names and new faces, and I just have to ask if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed the banter. I stream 5 days a week, 5 different panels, 5 different shows that give you a plethora of opinions. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the like button. We had Joe Dunmore, who drops a $2 super chat and he yells "Khan" like Kirk did when they killed his son. And so, spoiler, that movie Star Trek 2 is mad old. But listen, let's get to the outros, and of course, real quick, some housekeeping. Normally on Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do the new episodes of X Vlog Live. Tomorrow it's going to be at 1 p.m. because Luke Steele, who has gone up against the CMA, is going to be sitting down with me and also Game Pass Daily to discuss not only what the CWA means to this deal, but if the new investigation into the Apple and Google app stores in the EU and the UK are opening the door for this deal for Microsoft to go through with King. They both have big opinions on it. Remember, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow rather than 12 because of Luke's work schedule. And then the following week, we will go back to 12 o'clock. Hargeet Chani, sell your brand, brother. Talk about Game On Daily. Talk about your YouTube channel, what you got going over there, and where can people subscribe. And obviously, people are going to ask, where can I follow Hargeet Chani? Well, you can't because he doesn't do social media. Talk about it.
Yeah, so check us out on GameOnDaily.com. It's a news aggregation platform for video games. And then there's our YouTube channel is youtube.com/GameOnDaily. I have a separate channel, but I barely do anything there. I have a few things. It's at HargeetChani1, the number 1. And so you can check that out if you want. And then, so as far as social media stuff, I don't do any social media. I am on Discord and I'm on Xbox. HChani is my Xbox gamer tag. So check me out there.
Thanks, brother. And thank you for dropping in the codes that you did earlier.
Yep.
Definitely super appreciate that. One Bad Mother, representing the Xbox Era podcast. Talk about it, brother, where they can subscribe to that YouTube channel where they can check out your show, You Had Me at Halo, and more importantly, reach out to you on social media.
Well, first, I want to thank you for inviting me again, Boom. It's always a great time, hanging out with you guys. I always
Thank you
have fun.
so
It's been such a busy, draining few months personally, but it's like sitting down with your crew and just talking gaming is always a good time. And I had the good luck of Hargi here today, so I expect the good luck of your beard to rub off on me tomorrow, and for things to start getting a lot easier. And I will definitely see you and hopefully some others around here in playing some Halo custom games here over the weekend. But yeah, if they want to find me, you can see me on screen there at my handles Mutha MUTHA_1. So it's one bad mother at Mutha_1 on Twitter. So look me up there. Also, I'm with the Xbox Era team. I won't be on the podcast but Nick and John, you show up there so you can just let Nick know that he smells. He deserves that. Definitely this weekend. I hope to see a lot of those comments and some cheap super chats in there towards Nick. Other than that, yeah, I do have a Halo podcast, and actually this Friday we're going to have one. So we've actually had some of the best Halo news we've had in a while over the last few weeks, and specifically this week. So we need to dive into that because if you are a Halo fan, there's a lot to get into. I think the game is
surprise drop too.
Yeah, starting to feel a little bit more like we were hoping it was going to feel at launch. But hey, at least for us Halo fans hanging on here, it's great news. So come and find us there around 7 Eastern time. Other than that, man, I'm sure I will see you guys here soon again.
Absolutely, brother. And real quick, Hadari Mac has become a new channel member. Brother, thank you so much for that. It's very kind of you. Steel Rain, sell your brand, brother. Talk about living split screen, where they can check that out with your brother from another console each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And talk about where can people reach out to you on social media.
Well, Boom, I want to say first off, thank you for inviting me to be on. I know I couldn't provide everything during the show because you guys have been live for a moment. You guys were getting at it from the beginning. So shout out to everybody. But I definitely appreciate you being for asking me to be on, man. But I make it real easy for everybody, right? I still reign. The T is a 7 on everything. You want to type in Google to make it easy? Perfect. Look, I favor the streets of Twitter. I'm an avid gamer, so I've been in and out of Warzone here recently. Sonic's had a lot of my attention, and gotta get back into these streets, getting real unbound out here. But neither here or there. Like Boom mentioned earlier, I do have a Saturday morning show. I believe personally it's one half of the greatness that happens your Saturday mornings. Shout out to the Gaming Circle podcast. But Live Split Screen is a non-console centric platform. We talk about everything going on within the gaming industry. We take that RTS approach, pulling yourself out of the world. That's real-time strategy for those who aren't familiar. And looking at the darker crevices of the map, pulling those resources together, and just building up our foundation, our base, and hopefully and potentially reach those 3 billion gamers that Phil always speaks on. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, y'all have a beautiful night. The video games wars is tomorrow. I'm like just excited, man. I'm just sitting there like shaking. But anyway, y'all have a good one. Stay safe.
Thanks so much for that, brother. And Crispy Bomb, sell your brand, brother. Where are you going to be tomorrow night to be breaking down this information along with your other friends on another podcast? And where can people reach out to you on social media?
Shout out to the chat, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. At Crispy Bomb on Twitter, Crispy Bomb 28, Xbox Live. Tomorrow night, I believe we're going to do a live reaction, the VGA on next podcast. So, look for that. Bottle will have that up soon, hopefully. And then we got Retro Renegades Tuesday night, 7 p.m. And then back here, 7 p.m. Wednesday on Primetime Game. We'll see you then.
Brother, thank you so much for that. And yes, on Friday morning, folks, I'm not covering the Game Awards. I will be covering it for the entirety of Breakfast with Boom, all of the big announcements, who got snubbed, who won all the awards, and all the big reveals. We'll be covering that Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Kay Asante, sell your brand, brother. You got a show coming up this Saturday morning. Talk about that, where they can subscribe to get you past 1K, and more importantly, reach out to you on social media.
Oh well, thank you once again. Thanks to the amazing stack panel, Mr. Steel Rain, the King himself, who came in and unfortunately couldn't be with us, and of course Hargi Chani. Thank you, One Bad Mother. It's always great to talk with my gaming friends. It's always good to hear your opinions and whatnot. So, yes. Myself and Mr. Everborn Saga will be having the Gaming Circle podcast this Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We say we start you off with some slander, some tech. We do some tech drops here and there, maybe some games here and there, and then at the end we say, those living split screen guys, they're still going because they usually go for 4 hours and we go for 2. You can go finish yourself off with them. Pause. But we do appreciate and we share a lot of the same community members, and we always have great friends that are in our chats in both places, and you always end up catching us. So we appreciate the continued support. Gaming Circle podcast Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow us on social media, and when we go live, of course, we'll send an update and let you guys know. It's a fun time for gaming and a lot of game talk. Oddly enough, as the ABK stuff gets hot and heavy, we're finding ourselves talking more about games and just general gaming and gaming reviews and stuff more than anything else these days. Of course, there always has to be an ABK block because, Lord, that news needs to be discussed. But we're having a lot of fun on that show, so we appreciate all the folks who've come and check this out. And of course, as usual, being here on PTG and coming and always showing Double Barrel Gaming some support 5 days a week on all the various shows. We really appreciate you guys. So see y'all next week.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And Everborn Saga, sell your brand, brother. Talk about the Everborn Saga, where they can get that on Amazon.com, and more importantly, where they can reach out to you on social media.
Everbornsaga.com is the place to be. If you have been following me, you have noticed I've been sharing pages from our next project, which is Ariel's Adventure Chapter 2. And the interesting thing about that chapter is that is the first chapter that is coming out, where you will actually get to see, if you are a backer of the Everborn tier, we've created 5 characters in the Everborn universe, and they show up with action roles in that chapter. So it's action packed. We're about halfway into production. We're working on the second half, and that will be coming your way soon in 2023. That is followed by the Redlands Chapter 2 and the Remnant Chapters 1 and 2, which are going to be released together. So that is our 2023 roadmap. If you want to be a part of it, go to everbornsaga.com. If you're in the States, if you're not, just search for Everborn on Amazon, and you can get it shipped to you locally with your Prime subscription for free.
Nice. Well, good work, everybody. This was a great show. Record-breaking numbers, great opinions from everybody. Everyone delivered. The chat was on fire. Big shout out to them. A big, again, thank you for all of the new channel members who have joined Double Barrel Gaming. A big shout out to all of the huge super chats that came in. No dollar amount is bigger than the other. We definitely appreciate it. And it's because of that next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, folks, a week before Christmas, Mrs. Boom and I are giving away $1,000 in 2 hours. That's right, folks. We're giving away 10 $100 gift cards. The first $500 are going to channel members exclusively, and the second half of the show will have 5 more $100 gift cards to give away. And all you have to do is be in the chat and with us to the end, and then we'll throw your names into a picker, and if you get picked, you win. But we're doing something differently this year, folks, because times are tough. That's why we want to make sure we give back in a big way, but we're doing it a bit differently. If you want the $100 in cash because you need that money for gifts, we will PayPal you the $100, and we will pay the transfer fee. And that's for this particular contest. If you want your gift card to Xbox, we'll deliver it. You want it to PlayStation, we'll deliver it. You want it to Nintendo eShop, you got it. But if you need the money for gifts, you don't even have to say it. You said, boom, I'd rather take the cash. And as long as we do it through PayPal, we'll send you the money. That's the only caveat, because PayPal protects us. So that's not this Friday. The following Friday, it's the biggest giveaway the channel has ever done. It's $1,000 in 2 hours. We're not corporate backed. That's literally coming out of our bank account from the super chats that we collect and put away for just these special occasions. A big thank you to everyone. I'm going to close out the show, folks, with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught me when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.